No one is freaking out about the looming massive earthquakes threatening the Pacific Northwest. We're talking about the Cascadia area, and we know that we have a lot of high threat volcanoes in this area. We've had a 6.2 just yesterday hitting Alaska, and a lot of earthquake swarms there. And these are the volcanoes: Baker, Glacier, Mount Rainier, St. Helens, Adams, Hood, Jefferson, Three Sisters, Newberry, Crater Lake, Medicine Volcano Lake, Mount Shasta, Lassen Peak Volcano. Shasta, Lassen Peak, not far from California's Long Valley Caldera, which is a supervolcano and is inflating magma. Most of these volcanoes have erupted in the past 200 years and in the past 1,000 years, as you can see from here. So we know that we have a tremendous amount of earthquake activity around the Pacific Ring of Fire. Also today, 4.7 in Hawaii. A lot of 5 magnitude earthquakes around the world, and even on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. A lot of activity there, which is, of course, as we know, a fault line and magma underneath. So what's happening? When it comes again, the earthquake will be magnitude 8 or higher, which means the ground will warp and shudder for at least 2 minutes. That would be considered the big one. However, it's possible for the entire Cascadia zone to erupt, turning this earthquake into a disaster movie level catastrophe. And this is by Manasiwa and Popular Mechanics Unbended Reality. For many people, natural disasters inspire both fascination and fear. They're a sign of nature's power to not only create but also destroy. And at the same time, they're a reminder of the human potential for ingenuity when it comes to protecting ourselves from the forces we can't control. In this case, there are 2 opposing forces: the North American plate, the enormous tectonic plate that carries the entire continental United States on its back, versus the 90,000 square mile Juan de Fuca plate located in the ocean off Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. For the past 200 million years, these two have been squaring off in an epic wrestling match in an area known as the Cascadia Subduction Zone, CSZ. Trust us, nobody wants to see the end of this round, yet only a few people seem truly bothered: seismologists, energy management professionals, and those who have experienced earthquakes before. And in the past, I have made videos concerning the infrastructure. The buildings cannot withstand more than a 7 magnitude earthquake. The same with New York City. Both my parents were architects working in New York, and this is what many a time my parents were explaining. These high-rise buildings cannot withstand anything more than a 7. It's just not feasible to build buildings that can withstand anything more than a 7. Even on a good day, when you're in a skyscraper in New York, they swing with the breeze. The top floors swing. And if you're going to the restrooms, you can see the doors creaking and cracking from the swinging of the buildings, which is a natural thing to happen. Now, the thing concerning big earthquakes, the infrastructure there is not good enough to protect people. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box. Now let's remember that before the Tonga submarine volcano erupted, we did have a 6.2 right here on the Mendocino fracture zone. We had a lot of large earthquakes and swarms, Mendocino, and also the Blanco fracture zone at the Juan de Fuca plate. Let's remember that. It wasn't such a long time ago. Now, it's certain that the Northwest will experience a devastating earthquake again, says Chris Goldfinger, an oceanographer at Oregon State University, one of the world's leading experts on subduction zone earthquakes. He said, "We have no idea of the timing and how urgent it is." Goldfinger tells Popular Mechanics, as people tend to ignore it in that case. The majority of the public, as well as most governments in the Northwest, are not yet pushing to implement the extensive infrastructure changes and early warning communication systems needed to save tens of thousands of lives. And I'm going to find the USGS shake map of the Cascadia subduction zone, big one earthquakes. You can see how the land is going to move, and it just ripples like water. But that'll be at the end of here. Now the Juan de Fuca plate has been steadily pushing against the Pacific coast, and as it slides beneath the North American plate, subduction that is. But the roughly 47 million square mile North American plate is not budging. Instead, it's locked tightly against the Juan de Fuca surface. And the chilling prediction from Cascadia Region Earthquake Work Group, CREW for short, in its 2013 report on the Cascadia subduction zone CSZ earthquake said, Cascadia has now been building up strain for over 300 years. Remember, in 1700, they had a very huge earthquake, and it sent a very big tsunami all the way to Japan. So they say Cascadia has now building up strain for over 300 years. So the next great earthquake could happen at any time. Reduced to simpler odds, the chances that an earthquake as large as a magnitude 9 will occur along the zone within the next 50 years are about 1 in 10. Geologists have been watching this bout closely for the past 30 years. They say the CSC, which stretches from northern Vancouver Island in Canada to northern California, is bound to suddenly snap back like it did 320 years ago, resulting in double punishment. First, the violent upheaval of the land, and then the fury of a wall of water flooding that broken land. Multiple Native American reports about an earthquake and tsunami wiping out communities in today's Washington state and British Columbia coincide with this time. So do reports from Japan about a tsunami that devastated the Japanese coast the following day. When it comes again, the earthquake will be magnitude 8 or higher, which means the ground will warp and shudder for at least 2 minutes. That would be considered the big one. However, it's possible for the entire Cascadia zone to rupture, turning this earthquake into a disaster movie-level catastrophe. But there's still time to prepare, Goldfinger says. The geologists have some good ideas for protecting people and infrastructure in the event of the big one. That's, of course, if you assume that people will pay all this money to fix the infrastructure. That's a tremendous amount of billions, or if not trillions of dollars. He says we can use Japan as an excellent example of preparedness policy, he says, because Japan has a 1,000-year head start on learning how to live with earthquakes. Now, I'm not going to go into the amount of nuclear power plants that are in these areas. Yeah, I mean, it could be Fukushima 2.0 or 10.0. Now, it says here, Japan is the most resilient country in the world in preparing for earthquakes. You can have a major earthquake in Tokyo, but there is likely to be not much actual damage, Goldfinger says. In fact, Japan experiences minor quakes every week. A national initiative for earthquake-resistant code requirement safeguards buildings. Before a quake arrives, early warning systems automatically warn the public and shut down certain activities, including the railway system and power plants. By contrast, no such system procedures exist in America. California's quake resilience has improved somewhat over the past 100 years. Previous quakes on the West Coast have caused enough devastation and loss of life to spur some changes. For example, building codes for new structures now require seismic design to withstand collapse. No kidding. Well, of course. Now, still, the main problem is that there is no coherent long-term strategy for preparing our nation against earthquakes. Every town in America is left to its own devices to defend itself, Goldfinger says. For an unprepared town, even a small earthquake can cause major damage. He says it is a basic, simple thing. We have to start paying the bills a little at a time and save lives, or pay all at once. Earthquakes don't have to be disastrous, Goldfinger says. For example, it's possible to start retrofitting older buildings nationwide, prioritizing schools and hospitals in high-risk regions, he says. To take matters into your own hands, you can consult a program like Shakeout, where people across the world can learn about earthquake drills specific to their region and prepare for a quake if it hits. More than 3.5 million participants are already registered. You can also turn to Shake Alert, an earthquake early warning system for the west coast of the United States, which can alert people of earthquakes on their smartphones. It's run by UC Berkeley Seismology Lab in California. This is by Manassi Way, Popular Mechanics on Better Reality. And let's take a look at the simulation of shake maps on the Cascadia area.